Today we're not going to be talking about folklore or campfire stories. We're going to be looking at a pattern, a whole series of really detailed, surprisingly sober accounts from credible people. Witnesses describing something, well, something unknown out in the North American wilderness. So let's get right into the evidence.
So we're going to start our investigation with this single, really powerful observation. It comes from a place where, the known world kind of brushes up against something else. We're talking about the mountains between Cody, Wyoming and Yellowstone National Park.
Okay, before we get too deep, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What are we talking about here? Sasquatch, Bigfoot, right? And you've got two sides to this coin. On one hand, yeah, it's a huge part of our culture, of our folklore. But on the other, you have this really compelling and frankly growing body of eyewitness testimony that it doesn't have an easy explanation.
All right, let's zero in on this specific area, this corridor between Cody, Wyoming and Yellowstone. Now, this is not just some random pin on a map. This place is an absolute hotspot for these kinds of unusual reports. And they're coming from people who know this landscape intimately. I mean, they know it like the back of their hand.
So I want you to just picture this for a second. You're driving down a dark highway, late at night. Your headlights cut through the darkness, and suddenly, there it is. This is exactly what happened to two geologists. And these are scientists trained to observe things carefully. They had to slam on their brakes, completely stunned. Because what they saw, it wasn't a bear, it wasn't an elk. It was something that moved with this weirdly fluid, almost unnatural grace. And it crossed 22 feet of road in just 3 steps. 3.
And get this, the very next morning, before they even talked to each other about it, they each wrote down everything they saw. And their accounts? Almost identical. They both described this creature with a big, blocky torso, a head that just sort of merged right into its shoulders, no real neck, and these long arms that hung all the way down to its knees.
But it wasn't just them. In the exact same area, you've got a pair of woodcutters who saw something really similar. They were looking through binoculars and spotted this huge, upright figure. They said its mass was just incredible. And then, as the sun started to go down, they heard this sound coming from the woods. A really bizarre, high-pitched squeal. They were adamant it was no elk, it wasn't any animal they'd ever heard out there before.
Okay, so we're starting to see a really consistent physical description, right? But what about how it acts? This is where the reports start to shift, from just seeing something to something much more complex. We're talking about interaction. And honestly, this is where it all starts to get deeply, deeply unsettling.
Take this account from a hiker. He was all alone, just west of Cody. He starts hearing these sounds that are, they're pacing him perfectly. He stops, the sounds stop. He starts walking, they start walking. He said he just got this distinct, chilling feeling that he was being shadowed by something smart, something he couldn't see, just inside the tree line.
And this pattern, this escalation, it's not just happening in Yellowstone. Let's jump thousands of miles away to Algonquin Park in Canada. A family renting a cottage, they experienced this buildup over several days. First, it starts with these incredibly powerful howls from across the lake, something they'd never heard before. The next night, a loud crack, a thick branch snapping just 20 feet from their cabin. Then, at 3:30 in the morning, bam! Something hits the cabin so hard it shakes the entire building, waking up all 8 people inside. And to top it all off, just before dawn, they hear it. A low, guttural, mumbling sound right outside an open window.
And let's be clear, this behavior isn't always just watching from a distance. We actually have official accounts from park staff who describe being charged by a whole group of these things. They said they were throwing rocks, even logs at them. I mean, clear, undeniable hostility. It was so serious, in fact, that the Park Service closed that trail indefinitely for public safety.
All right, let's pull the camera back for a second. We're not just talking about a weird thing that happened in Wyoming or a strange week in Canada. When you actually start to plot these credible sightings on a map of North America, something really startling starts to emerge. It's like an echo across the entire continent.
So think about it. You've got witnesses in Wyoming describing a creature with no neck and this sort of conical head. Then, way up in Algonquin, they're reporting these powerful howls and things hitting their cabin. And then you go out to Washington State on Silver Star Mountain, and hikers are hearing these deep whooping sounds. Now, the details are a little different, right? But the categories of evidence, they're the same. A unique physical form, powerful and strange vocalizations, and intelligent, sometimes territorial, behavior. It's remarkably consistent.
So when you put all these pieces together, you start to get a profile. right? A bigger picture emerges. A conical head, no real neck to speak of, arms so long they hang down to the knees, a whole range of really complex sounds, whoops, screams, howls, even wood knocks, and these behaviors that just scream intelligence. Oh, and one more thing that comes up again and again, a really strong, musky smell, often described like a wet dog or something, right before or during one of these close encounters.
And here's where it gets really wild. This is a direct link across decades of time. Those hikers on Silver Star Mountain, after they heard those deep whoops, they went back and listened to the Sierra sounds, those famous audio recordings from way back in the 1970s, and they said the sounds were nearly identical. What's crazy is that bioacoustic analysis of those old recordings concluded that the sounds have a complexity and a frequency range that just don't match any known animal in North America.
So all of this, it brings us right to the heart of the mystery, doesn't it? After you look at all this evidence, these consistent descriptions, these patterns of intelligent behavior, these echoes that stretch across an entire continent, you have to ask yourself, what are we actually looking at here?
I mean, it really all boils down to this. You have geologists in Wyoming, a family on vacation in Ontario, hikers in Washington State. These are people separated by thousands of miles, sometimes by decades, who have never met. They don't know each other's stories, and yet, they are all describing the exact same impossible thing. The same fluid walk, the same long arms, the same unearthly cries echoing in the dark.
So where does that leave us? We're left with this really profound question. Are all of these people just describing a shared myth, something woven into our collective unconscious? Or are we getting these fleeting, tantalizing glimpses of a real biological species that just refuses to be found? The evidence as it stands doesn't give us a clean answer. It really just makes the question that much deeper.